this video, I want to describe the difference between a trustee and a trust beneficiary. If you're going to understand trusts in California, you really have to understand the terms we use when we're talking about trusts, because different people provide different functions within a trust. So when a trust is created, it becomes its own legal entity. It's kind of like a corporation in the sense that it takes on a life of its own. But trusts also are very different from corporations because a trust can only operate through its trustee, and the trustee is simply the manager. The trustee is the person who's in charge of managing the assets inside the trust. The trustee, however, is not the person who's going to ultimately receive the assets out of the trust, unless the trustee is also named as a beneficiary, but we'll get to that in a minute. So what does the trustee do? Well, the trustee does what the trust document tells them to do. So you look at the trust document and you follow the trust terms. That's the number one job of any trustee. The trustee also has to follow California trust law, which means they have to give out financial information and do accountings and keep beneficiaries appraised of what's happening within the trust estate. And ultimately, they have to make trust distributions when they're required to do so. What are trustees not supposed to do? They're not supposed to do anything they want. And unfortunately, too many trustees think that upon becoming trustee, they step into the shoes of the settlor, as if they can make any decision they want to make, regardless of whether it goes against the trust terms. And that's just completely incorrect. A trustee who's not the settlor must follow the trust terms. You have to do what you're told to do. But as long as the trustee does that and properly and reasonably manages the assets of the trust, then the trustee is doing their job. Beneficiaries are the people who ultimately are going to receive the assets out of the trust. Beneficiaries do not have a right to manage the assets, so beneficiaries really don't have a say in what assets are going to be sold or when they're going to be sold or how they're going to be sold. Beneficiaries are supposed to simply wait and receive their assets out of the trust. Now, again, that doesn't mean the trustee can do whatever they want. Trustees are constrained by trust law that says that they must act reasonably and for the benefit of the beneficiaries. But beneficiaries do not have that managerial control. They don't have the right to call the shots. Instead, their job is to pay attention to their trustee, get good information and review it, and ultimately get their assets out of the trust. That would be the beneficiary. Now, there are times when a trustee is also named as a beneficiary, and that can create a conflict of interest at times. It's not an automatic conflict of interest, though. In California, we allow beneficiaries to also be trustees. It's just that when you have a bad person acting as trustee who's also a beneficiary, it can lead to problems. So the trustee might do things that benefit their assets and hurt other assets that they're not receiving. You have to keep your eyes open to that. And ultimately, if a trustee is determined to do something that benefits themselves, then you have to take them to court in order to stop it. But that's the primary difference between a trustee and a beneficiary. The trustee is not going to receive any assets out of the trust. They're just managing those assets, whereas a beneficiary is going to receive the assets out of the trust, but they have no management control over those assets until they're distributed out to the beneficiary. Albertson & Davidson is here to help you fight for your inheritance. Check out aldavlaw.com for our complete library of helpful legal videos and articles from your favorite California trust and will litigation law firm, Albertson & Davidson, LLP.